Nintendo and lawsuits. Name a more iconic duo. It's the LP Podcast. Hello and happy Tuesday. It's the day of the week where I do more talking than playing of Nintendo games, but Nintendo's the topic all the same. Specifically, Nintendo's battle with Yuzu. Yes, emulation is the topic yet again. Apparently, the creators of the Nintendo Switch emulator Yuzu, Tropic, Haze, have reached a settlement with Nintendo for $2.4 million in damages. On top of that, they've agreed to cease development entirely, shutting down the production facility, the studio, the website, everything, the whole kit, kat, and caboodle for the Nintendo Switch emulator. And as part of the settlement, apparently Tropic Haze won't be able to offer or market the product or any of its source code in the future. Yuzu itself shut down immediately, and it's received, an interesting, how shall we say, diversity of opinions after the fact. Some people are saying things like, oh, Nintendo hates preservation, Nintendo, hates the consumer. And then other people think things like, oh, Nintendo's protecting their IP, right? Nintendo is protecting profits that they use to sustain themselves as a company and all of their employees. And I think there's, a little bit of nuance to this topic for sure. But personally, I fall into the former or the latter category specifically. I'm not going to lie to you. I have emulated some things before, right? I've used the Dolphin emulator to play GameCube games, whatever. But it's not something that I feel, shall I say, important or something that I am entitled to. And I understand that Nintendo's a company that very much wants to continue to make money off of their products. And when you have an emulator here, Yuzu in this instance, that's emulating or helping emulate current gen games that people would be buying, right? You think specifically of Tears of the Kingdom in most recent history, which is actually where all this attention, I believe, first started. Well, you're gonna have problems, man. You're gonna have problems, especially then when you consider the fact that Tropic Haze had a Patreon set up to where people could pay them, yes, Yuzu, Tropic Haze, pay for specific capabilities that therefore help you emulate the Nintendo games even better. And it's like, it flew too close to the sun, right? I think that maybe if they didn't set up that Patreon, that they may have been fine. I think they may have been allowed to continue doing as they were. It may still have gotten rocky down the line because of the aforementioned fact that it was, emulating current generation games. But who's to say? Ultimately, they settled, right? They shut down, and I'm sure other competitors or other developers will create technologies or softwares to fill that void, but they'll perhaps be a little bit more discreet when it comes to accepting financial contributions for stuff that's not necessarily theirs, right? Yeah, sure, they developed the emulator, and that is work, right? I'm not ignorant to that fact. But to use that technology to then take advantage of unpaid for technologies from other companies is just, it's tough, right? That's not something that's ever going to be seen as okay, I don't think, especially legally, and even more so by the companies responsible for the IPs that are then being emulated. Like they're not gonna want that. That's directly cutting into their profits. So ultimately, this serves as a not a reminder, but something of precedent, because as far as I understand, a settlement of this size or anything like this has never happened in the video game emulation world in general. So we'll have to keep an eye on it, because like I said, other competitors have been popping up. And apparently Citra, the 3DS emulator, also part of this whole sweeping movement. 3DS emulator Citra is also affected by this judgment. While not explicitly named in the court documents, the emulator was created by the same people. Okay, so there we go. Looks like Tropic Haze was responsible for both Yuzu, the Switch emulator, and Citra, the 3DS emulator. So a little bit too bad. And hey, one more thing. For the people that talk about caring about preservation, I don't think this has anything to do with preservation, right? No one is No one is pirating Tears of the Kingdom before it releases because they want to preserve it. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't I don't know. Maybe I'm way off base. But thankfully, this is not the only topic today because it is a little bit of a loaded one. I'm sure tons of people have tons of opinions on it. Many of you may, in fact, disagree with me when I side with Nintendo for this. And that's fine because ultimately, Nintendo's the topic. And what's more, 7 years ago, Nintendo released the Nintendo Switch. Yep. It is the Nintendo Switch's 7th birthday. Isn't that crazy? That is absolutely wild. I feel like it was, just 2 years ago when I first got my Nintendo Switch. It's making me feel old, the fact that it's been 7 years, nearly a decade already. And what a run it's been, truly. I think that the earlier section of the Switch's lifespan was, albeit a little bit more tough, a little stronger in terms of the games released alongside it, right? As opposed to this year. I mean, last year was actually really, really good. So I suppose I should stop myself from saying that they've slowed to a halt. I just worry that this final year, 2024, may have not had enough set up for it, almost as if they were really planning on having the successor ready for this year, and then it had to get pushed to 2025 or beyond. So we'll see. We still do have a few games coming out, right? Princess Peach Showtime in just a couple of weeks, Thousand Year Door Remake, Luigi's Mansion 2. There's a few things coming, and maybe more, too. Who's to say? Nintendo is not a company that's ever shied away from, bam, hey, here, this is coming out tomorrow. So I guess we'll see. Either which way, a very happy birthday to the Nintendo Switch. Moving on. We also have another celebration coming later this week. We have Mario Day, March 10th, specifically on Sunday, and Nintendo is celebrating. That's right, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and the Nintendo Entertainment System on Nintendo Switch Online do indeed, of course, have the earliest installations of the Mario franchise, but that's not all that's been added into it this year. So if you scroll down, we'll see exactly what they have. We have deals. Okay, deals are good. Look at this. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Mario Party Superstars, Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, all for a suggested retail price of $39.99. So how about that? And it looks like a special deal going from the 10th to the 16th. There's participation in 2 My Nintendo sweepstakes from now until April 16th. And let's see, there's a Mario Day at Nintendo New York. Meet and greet with Mario and Luigi. Wow. The plumbers themselves. There's also a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tournament starting on March 10th. Interesting. I shan't be participating in that because I am nowhere near qualified. Goodness gracious, if you've seen any of the Mario Kart streams, you would know that I would not do well. The GameStop also has an in-store demo at participating GameStop locations, not on Mario Day, but 6 days after, to play Mario-themed games. Interesting that is 6 days after. Very strange. Whatever. Hey, you celebrate Mario Day. You can do it late, I suppose. You can watch the Super Mario Brothers movie and check out the companion digital guidebook. But that doesn't seem to me like it's anything necessarily different from what you could ordinarily do. But it says there's more if you visit mario.nintendo.com to find out. So, fascinating. Perhaps not as extravagant of a celebration as perhaps I would think, but hey, whatever. I'm probably going to celebrate by, drinking some coffee and growing my mustache a little, just as Mario would have us do. Mario would also have us, if he had his way, buy more of his games, and that's something that Sega actually has been lamenting. Sega implies that Super Mario Wonder was responsible for Sonic Superstars selling less than expected. I mean, on the surface, yeah, that makes sense. If a game releases in tandem with another game and one of them sells markedly better, you'd have to imagine that people are diverting what limited amounts of discretionary funds that they have towards game 1 versus game 2. You know what I'm saying? And what's more, I think that Mario at this point is just a markedly more widespread video game franchise, especially with the success of the Mario movie in the last year. Right? Sonic has had a movie recently, but it didn't do as well, for lack of a better, shall we say, phrase. But that being said, I don't necessarily think that this is wholly correct. I don't think that there's anyone who's at, Walmart holding up Mario and Sonic, I'd be like, I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna get Mario. Maybe. I mean, there's probably a non-zero amount of people that experience was unique to. But I feel by and large, Mario has a slate of dedicated consumers, right? People are like, I'm going to get the Mario game. I fall into this crowd. Mario also has a slate of brand recognition from, we talked about Mario movie and just long-standing IP, where people that aren't perhaps familiar or big fans of the franchise be like, oh, there's a new Mario game. Sure, whatever. Let's get it. Let's get it for the kids. Let's get it for the grandkids. Let's get it for the neighbor's dog, whatever. And then Sonic, also does have a huge rabid fan base, but I think that those people specifically are the ones that are buying the Sonic game more so than the casuals. No one bought Sonic for their dog. And maybe they didn't for Mario either, but I bet it's more likely that they bought the Mario game for their dog. I guess, who knows, ultimately. Like I said, I think there can be some amount of correlation between these two things without any real concrete causation. But I'm no economics major, right? I'm just a guy that plays video games and talks a lot. And I'm actually done with that for today. So thank you so much for watching. Probably the shortest podcast today, but news is light right now. We've got a very small semblance. I think the biggest topic was just the emulation thing. And I'm very interested to see where people stand on that. Either which way, I do this every Tuesday. I'm your host, LP, and I hope I see you again next time.